Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us on our Facebook Live tonight to discuss the tank plan change. My name's Nicola Nicholson. I'm one of the policy planners here at the Hawke's Bay Regional Council.
Hello everyone, my name's Mary-Ann Baker and I'm also a policy planner with the Council.
Good evening everyone, I'm Sandy Heidegger and I work in the Water Quality and Equality team.
Good evening everyone, my name is Ahmad Elwan. I'm a senior groundwater modeler at the Regional Council.
So we're just going to have a wee short video explaining the tank plan change and what's coming up, and after which there'll be a chance for you to ask us questions and we'll be answering those for you.
Hi, I'm Mary-Ann Baker. I'm a senior policy planner for the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. The Hawke's Bay Regional Council is proposing to make changes to the Regional Resource Management Plan to add new provisions to manage water quality and quantity in the Tutaikuri, Ahuriri, Narororo and Karamu catchments. These are what we refer to as the tank catchments, and this video is about the proposed tank plan change. I'm going to talk about the plan, where it applies and the approach we've taken. I'll introduce you to the new water quality management rules and how water allocation will work. I won't go into a lot of detail. If you want to know more about things like stormwater, source protection zones, farm plans or catchment collectors, the information is all available online in reports and fact sheets at hbrc.gov.nz. Just search #tank. This video is one way to give you some information about the proposed tank plan during our public consultation that runs through to the 3rd of July 2020. Please ask questions if you need more information. Use the tank page on our website, Facebook, email or phone the Regional Council. We will run Zoom meetings with stakeholder groups and organisations interested in this plan change. Contact your group to find out how to take part. The tank plan covers a large part of the Hawke's Bay region, the cities of Napier and Hastings, as well as rural catchments and the Heretaunga Plains. The water and land in these catchments support a thriving economy, as well as the health and social and cultural well-being of our communities. Rivers and waterways have to come first, but water users should also be able to rely on safe, secure water when they need it. This is critical to the health and economic needs of our community. Water is valued by everyone in the community, and wide community input has helped to develop this plan change, which is now open for public consultation until the 3rd of July. I want to acknowledge the efforts of the tank group members who worked for 6 years to understand the science and the values behind this plan. They developed a pathway towards better environmental management and didn't lose sight of the importance that water has for our social, cultural and economic well-being. The Regional Planning Committee of the Council completed the work begun by the tank group. When in place, the tank plan will give clear direction about freshwater and land use in the Heretaunga Plains and its contributing catchments. The tank plan change strikes the delicate balance between freshwater use and its protection. It includes objectives for tank waterways, the methods to achieve these objectives, including rules as well as limits for water quality and water quantity. It also includes directions for the monitoring and review of plan provisions. A lot of work went into identifying what we value about water. The plan accounts for national, regional and local values for water and also considers how water is valued from a Māori perspective. The plan includes measures for managing both water quality and water quantity. We'll look at water quality first. A number of water quality issues need attention in the tank catchments. They include excessive plant growth in lowland rivers. This decreases oxygen levels. A lack of shade also means water temperatures are often too high for aquatic life. Nutrient loss from land leads to increasing algal growth in freshwater and also the estuaries they flow into. Some algae is okay, but too much nutrient can cause algal blooms. Sediments lost from land deposit onto riverbeds and into coastal areas. This smothers the aquatic species living there. Stormwater from urban areas contains pollution that compromises freshwater and estuary ecosystem health and reduces our ability to connect with our treasured waterways. Riparian land can be better managed to improve both ecosystem health and water quality. How does the plan solve these problems? The values that relate to water quality have been translated into new water quality objectives. For example, the water clarity objective sets a measure to protect fish that rely on seeing their prey. The target to meet all the objectives is 2040. To improve water quality and meet the objectives, the tank plan will prioritise. First, it identifies places for action. The plan identifies priority catchments where water quality objectives are not being met and where management action is needed first. Source protection zones also identify where management to protect quality of urban water supplies is needed. The plan also focuses on mitigations and management practices known to make a difference to water quality and ecosystem health. Some milestones and dates for completion are set. These include improved riparian land management, stock exclusion from waterways, wetland protection and development, erosion control planting, rural farm plans and urban site management plans. There are some new rules and changes that set different standards for high-risk activities. These include new rules for cultivation, stock access, stormwater discharges and land use change. There are new rules about activities in source protection zones that protect the quality of drinking water for our urban water supplies. The collaboration that helped shape this plan is reflected in how we expect to implement it. This includes commitment from key stakeholders such as the Napier and Hastings councils, primary industry groups such as Beef and Lamb and Horticulture New Zealand, community groups such as Fish and Game, and local iwi, all playing their part. Their actions alongside the Hawke's Bay Regional Council will focus on priority practices and places where action is needed. We're also providing for a new approach to catchment management by landowners. Collective farm planning can support innovation and give the flexibility needed to help meet the plan's objectives. The plan allows for ongoing improvement with investigation and review requirements to ensure the right information is collected in time for the next plan review. For example, gathering more information about a sustainable level of contaminants for discharge into the estuary, as well as gathering more accurate information about contaminant loss from land. We'll now have a quick look at changes the proposed plan makes to allocating water. Let's look at the complicated connections between groundwater under the Heretaunga Plains and the water in the rivers and streams. New modelling shows us a much higher level of connectivity between the Heretaunga Plains groundwater levels and flows in rivers and streams. It's really like one big bathtub. Groundwater abstraction causes stream depletion and lowers stream flows. This affects the Ngaruroro River as well as the lowland streams of the plains. The main issues that the plan deals with are a lack of a sustainable groundwater limit for taking water, how groundwater levels affect surface water flows, and managing the stream depletion effects of groundwater abstraction. It addresses reducing groundwater allocations, where much more water has been allocated than is typically being used. The plan also sets appropriate allocation limits and flow management regimes for the Ngaruroro and Tutakuri rivers. This is a map from the new Heretaunga Plains groundwater model. We're showing stream depletion in the Ngaruroro River due to groundwater takes across the plains. Darker colours show a few big takes that have quite a large stream depletion effect, but the lighter colours show how all the small takes contribute significantly to the overall cumulative stream depletion effect on our rivers. This graph shows the rapid increase in water use in recent years. Look at the increasing length of the coloured bars. The total allocated amount is much higher than the used amount. If water use increased to the allocated amount, it would have a serious adverse effect on groundwater levels and surface flows. It would not be sustainable. Groundwater management solutions include reducing allocation to existing permit holders to meet actual and reasonable demand, and only on use up to 2017. The interim limit of 90 million cubic metres a year is based on modelled and actual use in the 2012-2013 year. It was a drought year. and this is subject to review according to how well the plant's management measures work. Water permit holders will also be required to manage stream depletion, which is new. Permit holders will need to contribute to a stream flow maintenance and habitat enhancement scheme, or they will be subject to a ban when flow triggers are reached. Flow maintenance can be with groundwater pumping, as now happens with the Twyford Irrigator Group, or by new water storage and release solutions. The plan also requires improvements to ecosystem health, such as by better riparian land management and wetland protection and creation of new wetlands. Lastly, let's briefly cover water quantity looking at surface water. Allocation limits have been reduced for the Tutaikuri and Ngararoro rivers. The Ngararoro River is over-allocated and the Tutaikuri River is fully allocated. The Karamu is also over-allocated. The Karamu is also over-allocated. These new allocation limits include Zone 1 groundwater takes. This is groundwater so connected to surface water that it has an almost immediate effect on stream or river flow. New standards for taking water are being added by this plan change. They include requirements to use allocated water efficiently, to use the Irricalc water demand model to work out water needs for irrigation, reallocation of water based on actual and reasonable water use, and a prohibited activity for any take that exceeds an allocation limit. For more information about the proposed tank plan change, check out our tank webpage. Take a look at our brochures, our fact sheets and videos at hbrc.govt.nz. Search for #tank. The plan itself and all the supporting reports and meeting records are all there. If you have questions, please contact the Regional Council. You can join one of our Facebook discussions or ask questions via our website or send an email to etank@hbrc.govt.nz. Be informed. We look forward to your submission on the proposed tank plan change. Your submission might support the plan or oppose it and suggest amendments. Thank you.
Thanks for staying with us through that video. So we're now entering into our question and answer session tonight. So to start off with, I'd just like to ask you, Marianne, could you give us a little bit more of a background about how the tank plan change came to be? Who was involved with putting it together and how was that initial tank group set up?
Sure. It's actually been quite a long time in the making, this tank plan change, and it started some 8 or so years ago. The water management provisions for the Heretaunga Plains and its connected catchments were due for review, and the council back then decided to take a slightly different approach to plan process and put together a stakeholder group. So we had more than 30 people representing a whole range of organisations, including environmental groups. We had industry group representatives, and a whole range of various community interests that were represented around the tank table. And these people did the hard yards in trying to understand the science behind the water challenges in the tank catchments and to work out how we should manage our resources for now and for the future. And that group worked on the tank plan change for some 6 years, and back in 2018 delivered to the Regional Planning Committee a draft of the provisions that they thought would go some way towards better environmental management. Now, not everything was decided in a consensus way. There were some issues that still needed resolving, and that is what the Regional Planning Committee put its mind to in the subsequent years. And there were a few loose ends that the Regional Planning Committee of the Council also finished. And that led to what we now have in front of us as the proposed plan change. And that's what we're now looking at wider community input into to see whether or not the tank group itself got it right and to work out how it might perhaps be improved.
So that collaborative approach, setting it up with the stakeholders from the beginning, was a different approach to what had been traditionally done?
Yes, it was, and it was following on from some of the work that was being done at a national level, where there was an understanding that people needed to be involved in making decisions for their own futures. And there was a land and water forum that was set up by the government of the time to look at how we might do better in managing our resources than the very adversarial process that would normally be followed. That's not to say that we don't still have some process ahead of us, but the groundwork in having a collaborative approach meant that there was a wider appreciation of the values that we hold for our water bodies and the challenges that face us in meeting objectives that we share for improving our water resources.
Nice. So we've had a question just come in from Peter, and he's asked, with regard to priority catchment areas referred to in Schedule 28, which is good to see that Peter's been reading the plan change, have you tested the Council's ability to address the various high, medium and low priorities within the 3, 6 and 9 year timeframes against the Council's budget and resources in the long-term plan?
Now, well, that is a very good question, and in fact the collaborative approach that was taken in setting the plan up meant that it wasn't seen as solely the Council's responsibility to meet objectives. There was an acknowledgement that there was a community responsibility in making sure that where individuals or organisations also had a role to improve water resources, that made for a slightly different focus on implementation. So while the challenge ahead is quite significant and the areas in those priority catchments is quite large, we are looking to our stakeholder organisations to help with meeting the milestones and the objectives we've got. And I have a slide, Nicola, just to show what those priority catchments are for people to have a look at. And you'll see the red areas in those top maps indicate the high priority areas where we are focusing on the areas that are either not meeting our water quality objectives or where there might be a risk of additional contaminant loss, particularly in relation to sediment. And we also have 2 areas where risk to groundwater is getting additional treatment, and those are in the source protection zones for the water supplies for Napier and Hastings. And finally, we have some priority areas in relation to dissolved oxygen. So that does put a bit of a challenge ahead of us, the Regional Council, as well as our community in meeting the objectives in those areas.
Nice. So on to our next question from Kelly, and she's asked a question around preventing 1080 from entering waterways and pest control. So how does the plan address these?
Well, it doesn't specifically address those, and we should note that this tank plan change builds on existing plan provisions that we already have in our RRMP, which is our Regional Resource Management Plan. And that plan already has rules and policies around discharge of contaminants. The tank plan change amends some of those rules, and I have to say it doesn't specifically address 1080, but where there is a contaminant discharge, it is subject to requirements for consents.
All right, we've got a next one here from Lynette, and she has said, have you given existing water take consent an indication of what their takes will change to?
Existing water consent holders, well, yes, they are going to be faced with some changes through this plan change. Depending on where you are and what resource water is being abstracted from, will impact on what changes those consent holders might face. We have attempted to ensure that all permit holders do know that there is a plan change that is likely to impact on them, and we encourage permit holders to look at the plan itself, or look at the summary sheets and fact sheets that might help them understand more where changes might arise. And we encourage people to ask specific questions.
So I think that's a really good point about those consent holders getting familiar with the facts and making a submission. So heading along to our website, which is hbrc.gov.nz. Hashtag tank is what you need to search for, and then clicking on the little have your say icon and submitting, because this is what this process is about. We want to hear from those people in the community that are affected.
Yeah.
So the next question we've got is from one of our very own councillors, Neil Curtin. He's asked, how will the Ahuriri estuary be protected in the tank plan change?
Well, that's a very good question, Neil, and we are focusing on urban waterways as much as we are focusing on rural waterways, and we know that some of our urban streams are not in a very good state and their ecosystem health is not what you'd call very good. We also know that the Ahuriri estuary is not in the best shape it could be, and it is being impacted particularly by stormwater from urban areas. So the plan does have a range of new provisions that look to better management of those sources of contaminants. And I'll just quickly flick up a slide. We have much better, or we are proposing a much better regime to manage stormwater. So looking at new developments, making sure that new developments are subject to better design standards, so improving the way that we build new infrastructure. So we account for potential contamination risk as we build new infrastructure. We're also looking at making sure that risk sites, like industrial sites in urban areas, are also looking at managing sources of contamination. So using a site management approach so that each industrial site, for example, has identified risks at that site and adopting mitigation measures. We're also very aware that there is a big legacy in terms of our stormwater management. We have an existing network that was built for different objectives, and most of those are related to getting rid of stormwater quickly. So there are pipes and there are straight waterways. So we need to manage some of the constraints that they place upon us, and it has really quite big implications for our local authorities. Both Hastings and Napier councils are working in this space to improve stormwater management and to take a more integrated approach to the way we manage our waterways in urban areas.
So kind of back to that idea of collaboration, so collaborating with other councils and the industries to make sure that we're getting those behaviours right.
That's right, Nicola, and it was, I think, a real benefit of that collaborative approach. It did include both representatives from both of the councils, and the understanding that we need to work in a collaborative space, and that we're consistent in our respective plans, our engineering standards, our bylaws, so that we end up with a more integrated and coordinated approach to our stormwater management.
For sure. All right, we've got another question here from Vicky, who is asking, what is the pathway for people who do not have water meters because their takes are under 5 litres a second to demonstrate actual and reasonable use?
So we do understand that we might not have the best information possible. We are building into the plan a couple of ways of working through understanding what actual and reasonable looks like, and we will rely heavily on water meters where they're available. But we're also looking at a more consistent approach to predicting or modelling water demand for irrigation. So we're going to be applying an IRRICalc water demand model and looking at irrigation needs. If it's some other end use, then we'll be looking at whatever sources we can find for demonstrating water use, and water permit holders will have to look at what kind of evidence they have to support an application for an actual and reasonable water demand.
Sorry, we've just been told that we've lost some of our sound when we've been cutting to those slides. So if you've missed anything or anything doesn't make sense, please feel free to jump on and send us a message, and we'll get back to you on that. But on to our next question from Samantha, which is going back to the earlier question about Schedule 28. And has the tank team prioritised which areas of the catchments need priority from high, medium and low?
Now, I'm not sure if I understand the question exactly, but each of those catchments that we've identified for priority action are priorities for slightly different reasons. And what we're wanting landowners to do through the new provisions that are requiring a farm plan approach. So the farm plan mechanism is something that we will work with farmers to identify what the risks are from those properties and what the catchment risks are, or what the state of the catchment is. So if you're in a catchment that's, for example, got dissolved nutrients in the waterways, the farm plan will have to concentrate on those.
Take those into account.
Yeah.
So we have got a question here from Stuart. Do man-made drains like the Upper Awanui count as impacted by abstraction rules?
It might be something that I need to pass across to Ahmed, but essentially what we found through our water modelling is that the waterways of the Heretaunga Plains, the surface waterways, are very connected to the groundwater, and that when we abstract groundwater we do have a stream depletion effect on our waterways. Now some of those are constructed drainage networks that are built for the purpose of draining the adjacent land. They are possibly not part of a natural stream network, but most of the streams on the Heretaunga Plains are going to be connected to our waterways, whether through the discharge itself or through a connection with groundwater.
Ahmed, do you want to jump in, or pass the mic to Ahmed? Did you have anything you wanted to add? No?
you're good. Okay.
Marianne's covered that off nicely. Another question from Lynette. Are stock and house water takes protected, or will their volumes need to be reduced like irrigation?
Yes, we are proposing to make changes to permitted activities to take water. At the moment in the RRMP, the Regional Resource Management Plan, the permitted quantity for taking water for things like stock water or small scale use is 20 cubic metres a day. And we're proposing that amount for new permitted activities reduces to 5 cubic metres a day, and that includes domestic and stock drinking. But what we are saying is that if there's an existing use that's taking up to 20, it can continue to be a permitted activity, but it's new uses that will be reduced to 5.
Right. So talking about human consumption of water there, I guess that leads on to another question about how does this plan fit in with water use for our towns and communities?
Indeed, it's a lovely complex consideration when what we found is we fully, or if not over allocated, the groundwater in the Heretaunga Plains, which is the source of supply for our two main cities. So the plan allows for the cities to continue having the amount of water they currently have allocated to them to continue, but they won't be receiving any further water abstracted from groundwater, and will instead have to look for opportunities of saving or reducing or increasing efficiency of water use and improving network management to make savings in water to meet future demand for urban supplies.
Yeah.
So the urban areas are as much constrained by the limits we are placing as irrigators and other industrial users.
So it's that holistic approach across all water usage, really.
It is, but the plan also acknowledges that we do have, we are required to think about future use as well, and to gather better data and better information around future water supply and demand that will help us understand what those pressures are, and to look at solutions or options for managing for those. And that includes in relation to climate change, because we know that will change the supply of water at different times of the year. So the plan includes some signals for the council to look into water supply and demand both now and for future generations.
Yeah, looking at it going ahead, really.
Yeah.
So how will water permit holders manage that stream depletion, which is a kind of a key feature of the plan?
It's actually one of the more complex parts of the plan, Nicola. It was something that took quite a long time to resolve and to work through some solutions. And in fact, we know that we've got some stream depletion impact from our groundwater takes, And we modelled what would happen if we reduced allocations below existing use. And we also looked at whether or not restricting takes when we met trigger flows would be reached. And neither of those approaches were going to be terribly effective, or they were going to be quite costly. So we looked at whether or not we could maintain flows through other methods. And we tested through our models the pumping of groundwater to keep flows at specified levels, and that's building on the experiences that the Twyford irrigators went through following the last big drought. So that's one solution that's provided for, and we're also looking at whether or not storage solutions could work. So storing water at times of high flow and introducing those into our connected water bodies during low flow periods. So that's an impact that's created by the cumulative abstraction of all those groundwater takes, and the plan requires that those water permit holders offset or mitigate those impacts. So it is going to be a cost on water permit holders to meet those requirements of the plan.
Yeah. So I guess one of the other pieces of the puzzle is making sure that we're using the water we do have efficiently. So does the plan address that at all, or how do we make sure what water we are using, we're using well?
It's a really good question, and it's something that the plan does address and sets in place minimum requirements for efficient use of water. And as a minimum, every permit holder will be required to meet an 80% efficiency standard, and that will be part of a consent requirement.
Right, nice. So we've got another question coming from Lisa, and she says, does the tank plan change include a review of what herbicides our councils are allowed to spray directly into or around waterways?
Well, that is something that this plan change doesn't directly address, and it's something that we can pass on to our asset management team and perhaps provide you some response following this meeting.
Yeah, but I mean, that's part of tonight's exercise, is to let people know that they have the ability to submit on the plan change and get online and make their own submission. So Lisa, so if you want to see that address, pop in there and make yourself heard. I don't know if we've got any more questions coming through at the moment, but if anyone does have any more, you're more than welcome to email us on the eTank email or pop on our website, hvrc.gov.nz, and send them through, and we're more than happy to answer those. No.
And don't forget, Nicola, we've also got quite a bit of information on our tank webpage. There are videos and fact sheets that people are encouraged to have a look at, to understand more about where the tank plan has come from and what issues have been addressed.
Yeah, there's an absolute wealth of knowledge sitting there, so
Yes,
lots of reading. We've just got another question here from Stuart. Is it all water permit holders in the low flow impacted streams from mountain to sea who pump into, and how is the volume calculated for each permit holder?
Oh, well, the stream depletion provisions apply to the Heretaunga Plains groundwater management zone, so all groundwater takes in that zone will be subject to the stream depletion mitigation measures. And I will hand over to Ahmed to explain our stream depletion calculator.
So based on thousands of model runs, like over 3,000 model runs, we stored the results of these model runs in around 217 million rows, and we developed a very powerful calculator, stream depletion calculator. If you go on the tank website, under calculators, you can actually try it and check it. The calculator used the results of the model runs. So regardless how many thousands or hundreds of consents points you add to the calculator, it will assess the impact of pumping from these points on not only one stream, in all streams that are located within the model domain, not only at one time frame, but also at different times. So using this powerful calculator, we will be able to assess the impact, the accumulative impact from pumping from these thousands of consents, and based on that, we can account for the individual contribution from each consent and also the how much payment from each consent as well. I hope this cover.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just have a look for the next question that's coming through. So we've got another one from Lisa about riparian planting to shade waterways, and how will the tank plan change balance the need for this with the need for council drainage team to access waterways to clear drains?
The way we manage our riparian margins did come under a lot of scrutiny by the tank group, and also as a result of some of the information we got from our scientists. And different issues arise in different parts of the tank catchment. And riparian land management is a key focus of some of the policies and also some of the milestones we've set in place for improving the way that we manage our riparian margins. So we're looking at less spraying and less mowing and more shade in some places, and in others we're looking at getting stock out of waterways and planting riparian margins for a variety of reasons. So it's not just about water quality, it might be about biodiversity, it might be about shading the waterways. So we also have to be aware that some of our waterways, particularly those in the Karamu catchment, were built for flooding and drainage control. And so we need to think a little more carefully about how we meet multiple objectives. So not just about flooding and drainage, it's now looking at water quality and ecosystem health. And I'll pass over to Sandy to explain why riparian vegetation is important when we're looking at aquatic ecosystems.
Yes, so riparian planting is, as we know, serves a lot of functions, and we've got the streams that come from the hill country. It can filter, and it can filter nutrients and sediment and keep that from coming into the streams. But in the Karamu system, that is quite different streams that we've got there, and they're lowland streams that accumulate a lot of more sediment. And that is a completely different system with aquatic plants and not so much algal growth. So our problem there is, first of all, it's slowly flowing water. We've got a lot of aquatic plants in there that can choke the channel. And what the effect of that is that temperatures are quite high in the streams, and also oxygen can get very low. So riparian vegetation would be kind of a key tool that we can use to improve the ecosystem health of those streams, which suffer mostly really from temperatures that are way too high for aquatic animals in the streams, and also with the low oxygen they're struggling as well. Does that answer the question? Sorry.
Perfect, thank you.
We should also be aware that the council itself manages riparian margins in the Karamu catchment as part of the Heretaunga Plains flood management schemes that we operate. So there is a challenge for the council as well to look at how to meet those multiple objectives, and there is work underway with our asset management team to look at how we might manage those riparian margins differently, to provide some information to landowners about most appropriate planting regimes that meet those multiple objectives, and to also look into other ways of designing those waterways to allow for more space both for plants as well as for water, particularly during floods.
So we've got a question from Gillian now, which we might have touched on slightly earlier in regards to managing stormwater quality, and it also could be a little bit to do with the district and city council bylaws, but she's asked, do urban areas have to manage stormwater quality?
Yes, they do. And the tank plan change has introduced a whole new series of water quality objectives in relation to water attributes. And the objectives are met in some places, but not all. And we're looking at meeting those objectives everywhere, including in urban situations. And the stormwater rules in particular refer to how we manage contaminant discharges into our waterways and set new standards and milestones for meeting improved water quality states in those areas.
So it definitely does cast a wide net over a variety of issues, really.
Certainly does.
Vicky's asked, has there been any progress on a definition of 80% efficiency for irrigation water use?
We would welcome your submissions on this, Vicky, to help us refine exactly what we should be requiring in this space, not forgetting that it's not just irrigators we need to be efficient, it's all water permit holders will need to meet the standard as well.
Yeah, so that'd be a great one to submit
That
on.
would be a great one, yeah.
Amy's asked us, some consent holders have not fully used their allocated volumes because they have not yet developed fully their properties. Is their planned development likely to be curtailed under this proposal?
This would be one of the bad news stories of this plan change, the understanding that we have underestimated the amount of water available under the Heretaunga Plains. And not only do we look at actual and reasonable, we are trying to reduce the amount that we've actually allocated to permit holders. So yes, it does have big impacts on people that had plans to use unused water or previously unused water for new development. I guess the good news or the flip side is that the plan acknowledges the need to understand water supply and demand and has policies that recognise not just the adverse effects of water storage but also the benefits that they provide communities. And we're also looking at new or innovative ways of managing the available water. So we want to we want to have a management regime that enables permit holders to use the available water most effectively, particularly when there is water shortage and water demand might shift between different end uses.
Yeah. And I imagine this ties into a little bit of the work that some people might have seen with the helicopter out, the Sky Thames project. So starting to understand a little bit more our aquifers and what's going on there. So.
Yeah, well, it shows the investment that the council sees necessary in understanding our water resources because they are very critical to the health and well-being of our communities.
Really important resource. I think that might be all for our question. Oh, no, we've got one more question coming in. It's good to see people asking questions. It's been really lovely. Peter again. So he's asked, how many user properties within the tank catchments do HBRC think already utilise the 20 cubic metre a day permitted take in the RRMP?
That's not information I have at my fingertips, sorry, Peter. We did make some estimates in our modelling, so looking at what was most likely being used for those permitted takes. But if you want more detail, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. Yeah,
no, that's not a problem. And what proportion of those daily flows might be this permitted take? Once again, you might need to get back to Peter with those kind of figures.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sends us through an email to the eTank address, which is etank@hbrc.co.nz, and we can get that information through to him.
Yeah, that would be good.
And then we've got another one here from Vicky. Has there been any consideration of widening the requirement for telemetry in takes other than surface water?
There is a general requirement now, or proposed in the plan, that telemetry is a standard requirement for water permits. There are some exceptions if coverage is not very good, and for particularly small takes, but in general we are looking to use the technology to its best, because telemetry doesn't just help the council, it actually helps the water permit holders as well manage their water resources, and it gives us timely information that we can respond to in real time. So generally speaking, telemetry will be a key requirement.
Yeah. And just a reminder that if any of these kind of points have piqued your interest, to make sure that you do submit. So if you've just joined us, we've got a submissions website that you can access through our hbrc.gov.nz NZ page. If you pop on there and search #tank, that will take you to all of the information about Tank, and there's a little button that says have your say, and we've got the ability now to do online submissions, which is a new feature for this plan change, which we've got up and running. So it's pretty fancy, so pop on there and make sure you give it a go. But other than that, I'm not sure if we've got any more questions for tonight. But if you do think of any more questions, or you're watching this after we've been live, we have another Facebook Live on Thursday at 11 o'clock. So we'll be back here again to answer any more questions. But they've been some really great questions tonight. It's been fantastic to see that feedback.
We thank you for your interest, because your interest and your submissions will help build the plan into a better document. So
Which builds on that whole collaborative approach which the Tank Plan Change started off with.
Indeed it does.
So, no, that's lovely. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.
Good evening.